Now let's talk about the blonde with dark roots. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about my take on the Blondie brownies. A little brown sugar and about 1/3 cup of some butter here. Into the mixer, gonna cream that. There we go. I got a measuring cup. When it comes to the baking stuff, you know me, I've just really got to get out there measuring. I don't have the feel, like when I got a saute pan in my hand or I'm barbecuing, I can read it a mile away. This stuff here, I don't want to be messing up because I did the wrong portion. What, more sugar's not a good idea? Okay. So there is my cup of sugar. In with that, and I'll start creaming. Always makes me nervous. Cracking the egg in there, drop the shell, the whole thing's shot. So here's what I'm making. I'm making a blonde with dark roots, kind of the Guy Fieri spin on a blondie. Just add in a touch of some vanilla and slow this down a second so I don't wear all the flour. A cup of flour. There we go. Okay, let that kind of mix up. Pantry. Some leavening agent, a little baking powder, some baking soda. A couple of the key ingredients go into this, some coconut chocolate chips, and I always keep them in the freezer, keep them nice and fresh. Got some hazelnuts, and because I'll tell you something, Master Baker Jeff always told me, got to use your measuring spoon when it comes to putting in your baking powder and your baking soda. Okay, that's looking good. Let me get these in here. So it's a 1/2 teaspoon of each one of these. That's a quarter. And this is really important because this is what is going to give this, keep it from being so dense. And a quarter. There we go. Shut that down. Pull it up. There we go. Now, anybody want to lick this? No? Okay. Let's check this out. Bring it off. I'm going to go in with the hazelnuts. About a 1/2 cup of those. About a 1/2 cup of the chocolate chips. I'm going to fold these in by hand. I don't have to measure this part, right? This is the filling? Yeah, 1/2 cup of those. And about a 1/4 cup of this coconut. Coconut goes a long way, but because it really has a distinct flavor. But all these are going to go in so well. So about a 1/4 cup of the coconut, and then the room temperature cream cheese, which will really be nice swirled inside of this. We'll get about, that looks like a 1/3, okay? There we go, kind of move that around a little bit. And it does need some salt for sure. Okay, now, folding this into itself, grease the edge of this baking dish. Got my oven preheated at 350, and this is gonna take like 15 to 20 minutes. Actually, it could be 18 to 20 minutes. But I'll not just rely on the time, I'll go ahead and make sure that I've got a toothpick on hand in case, and I can do the little toothpick test there and see if it comes out clean, okay? Blonde with dark roots is my twist on a blondie brownie packed with chopped hazelnuts, shredded coconut, chunks of chocolate, and swirls of rich cream cheese. Now these are some bodacious brownies.
Halva apple pie bars. It's a 3-step process. I'll make the crust, the filling, and the top. Easy. To get started, I'll add 3/4 cup of softened, unsalted butter to my stand mixer. And then I'll add a 1/4 cup of sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, I'll get this mixing. I'll mix it on medium until it's fluffy. Okay. I'm gonna add 1 cup of all-purpose flour and 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. And I'll mix this until the flour combines and forms a dough. And that'll be good to go. I have my pan that's been lined with parchment paper. I'll scrape the dough right into the pan. I'll press this out evenly. The crust looks great. I'll bake it now at 350 for 10 minutes until it's just set. And while that's in the oven, I'll make my apple filling. I'm using a tart Granny Smith and a sweet Gala, and the combination adds great dimension. So I'll just skim off the top. And now I'll slice these into 1/4-inch slices. And then the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna squeeze some lemon over them, and that's gonna prevent them from browning. For the rest of my filling ingredients, I'll add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and the dark molassesy flavor of the brown sugar goes so nicely with these. 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, which will help the filling stay together. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then for my spices, I've got a teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom, and some freshly grated nutmeg. Okay, I'll mix everything together. It's time to check on the crust. This looks perfect. I'll add the apples right on top. I'll spread them out. And now I just have to make the final element of my pie bars, the sweet cinnamon crumble. You just add flour, brown sugar, salt, and cinnamon, then whisk everything until it's A-OK combined. And what makes this into a crumble is the butter. I have 6 tablespoons of softened, unsalted butter. And I'll get in here with my hands and smash it up with the dry ingredients so that it gets crumbly. The butter is thoroughly incorporated into the dry ingredients, so now I'll distribute it all over the top of the apples. Halva is a sweet, crumbly candy made of sesame seeds, and it goes so well with the apples and the cinnamon. So I'm gonna crumble this all over the top. Few pinches of sprinkles will not do any harm. These look perfect. I'll put them into bake at 350 for 35 to 40 minutes until they're lightly browned. Here I go for a taste.
My red velvet swirl brownies transform the classic Southern cake into fudgy brownies. I'm gonna get started working on the batter. Now this is gonna be kind of a 2-fold batter, the red velvet on the bottom, and then we're gonna have some cream cheese and a little bit more red velvet and do our swirl. It's gonna be really, really pretty. This is maybe something that you could do with your kids too, because I gotta tell you, I started baking at an early age. I mean, they were mud pies, but I was baking. I knew the concept of it. All right, 2 eggs in. I'm just gonna whisk these up really quick and get them ready to go. All right, now to my eggs, I'm gonna add in some of the stuff that really makes this a red velvet brownie. Of course, a little flavor from vanilla. Get that in there. And then my red food coloring, have to have this. Squeeze out a lot. And then some vinegar. Now the vinegar is gonna start reacting with my next ingredient to really make this red pop. It's gonna be a nice bright red color. And this is my cocoa powder, what's gonna make it pop. Now this is a chocolate brownie, all right? But it's not like heavy chocolate flavor, but do need the cocoa powder, just kind of bring it all around. There we go. And then to this, I'm gonna add a cup of sugar. Add that in there. See how easy this is? You can have the kids do all the measuring out for you. And then a nice pinch of salt. Now I need some flour. So I'm gonna get that really quick. And while you weren't looking, I had some walnuts. I toasted up, chopped them really quick. I'm gonna get these in. You can do pecans, any kind of nuts that your kids like, and if they have the allergy, just leave it out. All right, now I'm gonna get in about 3/4 of a cup of my flour in. About 3/4 of a cup. 1. You know, let me tell you about red velvet and me. It is my favorite cake. And I recently visited my grandma, and it was a surprise visit. So the weird thing is I really couldn't get my red velvet cake. She didn't know I was coming. I'm trying to figure out how can I make a surprise visit to my grandma and get red velvet cake. Me and my cousin Monique, we're gonna work it out next time. All right, so just slowly add in the butter. You don't want it to kind of upset the eggs or anything like that. 1 full stick. Ooh, don't get on me. Need that butter in the bowl. Just gonna go ahead and work this around really well. Look at how bright this red is. I'm telling you, it's the vinegar, the cocoa powder, you know, the acid levels, everything that's going on in these ingredients really work out well. It's like, did they know when they were making cocoa powder that it was supposed to be for red velvet? All right, so I'm gonna get this into my pan over here. This is an 8x8 pan. I've got it buttered. I'm not gonna get all of my batter in, maybe 90% of it, and the other I'm going to leave to dollop right over the top. Just some cream cheese. I have softened at room temperature here, 8 ounces of it. A little bit of vanilla goes in for flavor. I'm gonna put 1/4 cup of sugar in as well. And then just 1 egg, and this is gonna go right over my red velvet layer, which is just some cocoa powder, a little bit of vinegar, some sugar, flour, and red food coloring, of course, with a pinch of salt. All right, let me get this down and get this going. I love cream cheese as well, so this, just, to me, it's heaven, you know? Heaven in a square, a big square. If you don't know me, you should know by now I can do this entire 8x8. I would rather a 13x9, but trying to keep it light. All right, so now after everything is completely mixed together, turn it up a bit. You're gonna have a couple of little lumps, but that won't be too bad. It's gonna melt away when we get this into the oven. I'm gonna get this out and get ready to smooth this on the top of my red velvet brownies. Let me tell you, I came up with this idea because I love cheesecake and I love red velvet, so I thought, why not put the two together? I'm just gonna get this right over the top and try and kind of pour it evenly so when you spread, you don't kind of have to pull from one area and mess up with the red coming through. Let's get this all out into my 8x8 here. This is gonna be really easy. Now, if you are cooking with your kids, the next part of this is just truly, to me, fantastic. Get this on, a nice little smear, which makes sense. This is cream cheese. And then right on top of this, remember I saved about 10% of the batter, just maybe 1/4 cup, not even that. I'm gonna dollop it around, and that is going to be what I use to kind of get my swirl on. Okay, so a little piece there, a little piece there. This is what the kids will love, because I love it, and I still think I'm a kid. That's the cool thing about going to like family reunions. You know, I'm not married, you know, I don't have any kids, so I don't sit at like the adult table and I end up playing video games with all my cousins and stuff like that while all the parents are asleep. All right, here it goes. This is where the kids come in. They're gonna love this. Just take a skewer or the sharp end of a knife and just start to work this around. Whatever you do, it's gonna turn out beautiful because it's gonna have personality. Just like to go in circles, figure eights, whatever you like. Now I've got my oven at 350 degrees. This is gonna go into the oven for about 30 minutes. You know the trick, give it a nice little prick right in the center. If it comes out clean, it's good to go. All right, this is my red velvet swirl brownie. In the oven, 350, about 30 minutes. And on the bottom, don't forget the toasted walnuts that I put in there. Man, oh man. Get myself a nice little corner slice, the red food coloring, the cocoa. This ain't a game. This is some good stuff. You gotta give this a try.
These are my Millionaire bars.
Oh!
And it's $1 million before taxes.
Oh, but before taxes. Well,
All right.
these are thousandaire bars now.
Thousandaire bars. Okay, very simple. We're gonna make a crust, okay? Butter, sugar, vanilla.
Okay.
And then we're just gonna use a whisk for this one, and then we're gonna discard the whisk once it's dissolved.
And I see we've got the cross
the
section.
cradle, cross cradle, I call it.
Flour, very simple.
Wow, this is like
very
very
simple.
All right, you're gonna,
Eggs, sugar,
Yep.
flour.
that's it.
Done. I got
Done.
you.
And then we're gonna get and make a caramel.
ooh,
Kind of a caramel.
Is it the same as a caramel?
Same as caramel. Well, we put the butter right here, and then we put corn syrup. You can't see it, it's weird, until you touch it.
I know, I thought it was an empty bowl from over by here.
Brown sugar. Oh, yeah. And our favorite,
Sweet and
sweet
condensed
and
milk.
condensed milk. Look at this. This is just glorious stuff.
That is.
It just makes everything good. And then we're gonna add vanilla.
You have the butter, you have the sugar, but the sweet and condensed milk. Why that addition instead of just going normal dairy route?
I don't know, I like this better. I think when you taste the layering, you'll know. Okay.
I also think it makes it
That's going in.
easier.
Yeah, you're going in. And then I have another one over there. Would you bring it back?
Know it.
So you're gonna let this sort of hang out and sort of chill out here. You don't want it
Okay.
to be warm when you put it
And this
inside.
is cold too.
See
huh?
that? Look how good that is. All right. See that?
Ooh, wow.
Okay.
Shortbread. Right? Look at this. Shortbread.
We're gonna put it on top
And
here.
obviously, so important, Geoffrey, to let this cool
Yes.
enough before adding that caramel
Yes.
on top so it doesn't melt and become a hot mess.
Hot mess. We don't want a hot mess.
Not at a tea party.
We have the shortbread, right? We have the caramel, right? What do we need next? Chocolate.
Peanut butter cups. What?
Chocolate. We have a little cream here. Corn syrup.
I mean, I would take peanut butter and chocolate over the top too. That would be yummy.
Yes.
Chocolate
Yeah.
chips. Just dump them in.
Smart.
Very simple. It's hot. It's not boiling, okay?
For
Just
being
gonna-
millionaire bars, these are awful easy.
These are very easy.
Well, it's easy to be a millionaire according to GZ. You just wake
Gotta
up
work
and kiss
hard.
the air.
It's more difficult to be a 10 millionaire, such as myself. Listen, life comes with a lot of stress and pressure at that stage.
So we're just gonna put these here. Pour this
Double
on.
down.
Get it. Put it inside, and just let this chocolate cool down a bit. Get it in the fridge. Let that cool down a bit, and then we're gonna finish.
Like a little candy bar, Geoffrey.
I cannot wait.
I feel like you'll just need a little bite of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
gonna be
Would you put that back in
rich.
for me?
Yeah, do you want me to kind of tilt to the edge?
If you can, but I'm gonna put a little secret magic just before you put it in.
Okay.
Come over here.
Do it.
Got to.
Flaky sea
Oh,
Flaky sea salt.
Yeah.
There's a British brand that I love. Okay, it's time.
It's time. Get those bars out.
Let me take out my wallet.
Look at that
Wow.
million
$1
bucks in
million.
your wallet.
You ready? Let's hope this works. Oh, Sunny. Sunny did a great
Cradle of
job.
love.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course you did a great job. So,
Chocolate.
look at that, how nice that is, okay?
Oh my gosh, look at that. Wowzers.
Look at that. Look at that. Sizzle straight through.
I wanted to do this. I want to get that
Wow.
shot. You know that shot?
Hey, Zaddy, how you doing?
Wow.
You ready? Wow.
Wow.
All right, now we got
Hot
to do this
knife?
again.
Don't burn yourself,
yeah,
GZ.
Insane, dude.
I am
They're like,
insane.
oh,
I want it to look like a bar, so we're going to do a bar.
Oh, you got that.
yeah, like a bar.
A bar.
Wow.
Katie,
You gotta put that.
Oh my gosh, that's a big one.
look at that. But that's a bar, right? It's a bar.
that.
Yes.
It's like a gold bar, but it's a chocolate gold bar.
Yeah.
Geoffrey.
Crazy.
I love the way Katie has to address him first.
That's
Geoffrey.
right. First name.
These are not millionaire bars. They are billionaire
Oh.
Finally, we got to $1 billion.
I mean,
They-
you could say fulfillion, gazillion, dadillion.
bars. They are so rich. I mean, that's the only word for them. No wonder they're called millionaire bars. Because really just one bite is satisfying. Having that crunch of the shortbread there that gives you a balanced moment of not too sweet. Then with the caramel and the chocolate and having a little bit of flaky sea salt on there, blow your mind. I would put these in the freezer and then just have a little bite here and there.
Late
They're
night
so
snack.
Good.
So I just ground up a bunch of graham crackers, and I'm gonna make a simple graham cracker crust, which all key lime pies have. So I'm just pouring in some butter, melted salted butter, and I'll stir the crumbs until they're totally coated in the butter. And the butter is for flavor, but it's also to kind of make the crumbs come together in a crust. All right, so I have a 9 by 13 inch pan, and I lined it with foil and sprayed the foil with nonstick spray. So I'll put the crumbs in, and then the best way to get it into the pan is just to use your hands. And you kind of want to pack it down so that when you eventually slice the cheesecake bars, the crust will stay put and won't crumble all over the place. Okay, what I love about this recipe is that the crust and the filling are both made in the food processor, which just makes things a lot easier. So, of course, 3 big old blocks of cream cheese. And then sour cream. It's a pretty classic mixture. 4 eggs. And half a cup of lime juice. Key limes have a really specific, scrumptious lime flavor, but I just can't find the juice very often. Almost forgot the sugar. We don't want to do that. 1.5 cups of sugar. Oh my gosh. Did I mention this is a dessert? And then I'm gonna let the food processor totally mix this up. That sounds done right there. This is going to derail my healthy eating plan. And then, as you guessed it, oh look, there was a nice little bonus chunk of cream cheese. Oh, I want that piece. That's gonna be my piece. Okay, so you do want to kind of smooth it so the cheesecake doesn't bake crookedly. So it's gonna go into a 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. And you can see that I have a dish of water in the oven, which makes it sort of a moist environment. So I'm gonna bake it for 45 minutes, and then I'll turn the oven off, let it stay in there for 10 more minutes, and then I'll crack the oven door and let it stay in for 10 more minutes. It's a process. Then I'll cool it and chill it, but magic of television. I've already got a pan that's been chilling. Wow. Look how beautiful that bakes. Look at that. You can just kind of peel the foil back, and then you don't have to kind of navigate the pan when you're slicing it. All right, I'm gonna get these sliced into squares. Okay, now I'm gonna get them onto a pretty cake stand. I may not have enough room. I don't wanna stack these, of course. There's a gap, we can't have that. Got a few left over here, but here's what makes things really pretty. And you can do this in the pan if you wanna do like a heavier coat, but you wanna come in here and watch this? I like to give it a nice little snowy covering of powdered sugar. And then some lime zest. Just look how pretty it looks when it falls on there.
Wow.
It makes all the difference just to have that little hint of lime zest. All right. Glorious. Key lime pie cheesecake bars.
Every once in a while, I come across an idea that's so simple and so inspiring. I think, why didn't I think of that myself? Some friends and I went for dinner at Standard Grill in New York, which is right below the High Line. It's fantastic. And they serve these warm brownies in a skillet. It was so delicious that I had to come home and make it myself immediately, but for my brownie recipe. So that's what I'm doing here. For the dry mixture, I've got 1/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna sift them together. And here I have the chocolate mixture. It's so good, which I've prepared and completely cooled. I added 1 stick of unsalted butter, that's 1/4 pound, to a bowl set over a pan of simmering water. Added 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips, 1.5 ounces of unsweetened chocolate, and melted everything together. Then I set it aside for 15 minutes just to allow it to cool slightly. In a separate bowl, I added 2 extra large eggs, 2 teaspoons of instant coffee granules. It's one of those magic things that really brings out the chocolate flavor. 1.5 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. 1/2 cup plus 1 tablespoon of sugar. It's an unusual amount, but it gives just the right amount of sweetness. Then I stirred everything together. Just stir it, don't beat it. You don't want extra air in it. The last step is to stir the chocolate mixture into the egg mixture and allow it to cool to room temperature. So that's the 2 mixtures. Now I'm just going to put the flour into the chocolate mixture. As you can see, there's very little flour in this, which is what makes them such gooey, chocolatey brownies. This looks fantastic. So the last thing is, because these are actually triple chocolate, there are chocolate chips in it as well. So I've got 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. This is why you want to make sure the batter is cool, because you don't want these chocolate chips to melt into the batter. You want them to stay whole chocolate chips. I just put a tablespoon of flour into the chocolate chips. What it does is keep them from sinking in the batter. Just toss them together. Okay, and right into the mixture. Can't imagine how chocolatey this smells. That little hint of coffee really makes a difference. Okay, time to put it into the skillets. So I've got a tray with skillets on it. These are 3.5-inch cast iron skillets. You can buy them online, and they're just great, individual portions. How fabulous is that? And I'm just gonna pour this right in. Generally, when you have a brownie, you have to wait for it to cool. So you can cut it in squares and then eat it. And when it's in the skillet, I realize you don't have to wait for it to cool. It can be served hot right out of the oven. Okay, want to get every bit. Okay, these are going to bake 350 degrees for 25 minutes, and they're going to be so hot and gooey and just delicious. Oh my God, this is just amazing. Molten hot chocolate. Who wouldn't want that for dessert? Just have to try one. I bet you didn't think I was going to, right?
I made hummingbird bars. You've probably heard of hummingbird cake. Hummingbird cake is a spice cake that's normally made with like crushed pineapple, some bananas. I thought it'd be really cool to turn that hummingbird cake into a bar. All right, so I'm making the shortbread crust for this hummingbird bar. All right, so that's 2.5 cups of flour. I'm gonna use 1 cup of powdered sugar. Okay, a little nutmeg. Did I just sing that? A little nutmeg. A little cinnamon. Nutmeg and cinnamon are traditional spices in a hummingbird cake. And about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm also gonna add a cup of unsalted butter, which is 2 sticks. So I'm cutting it up so it blends better in the food processor. Okay, give it a pulse. And I want this to form a dough. Make sure that butter breaks down. There we go. It has formed a ball. Now I have a 9x13 casserole dish that I've lined with some parchment paper, sprayed it with some nonstick so it comes out very easily. And it's gonna be a little sticky, and that's okay. I have the oven preheated to 350. I'm gonna bake this off for about 30 minutes. Okay, while that bakes, I'm gonna make my cream cheese filling. All right, to this bowl, I am going to beat 2 bars of cream cheese, which is normally used in the frosting of a hummingbird cake, with 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. Just gonna beat some air into this cream cheese and make it nice and fluffy. All right, so that's fluffy. I have 3 eggs. I'm gonna add them in 1 at a time to make sure each egg is completely incorporated. Okay, I'm gonna add a little vanilla. Give it 1 more mix. And it wouldn't be a hummingbird bar without bananas. So I have a really soft banana here that I'm going to mash into this bowl and then add it into my cream cheese filling. All right, so I've mashed my banana and give it 1 more mix. Okay, just wanna make sure that's thoroughly incorporated. Looks good to me. It's time to pull the crust out of the oven. All right, let that sit for about 30 minutes before I add my filling. My crust is cooled. Now I'm going to pour my banana cheesecake filling on top. Now I need to add the iconic hummingbird flavors. I have a can of pineapple, crushed pineapple that I've drained and patted dry. I'm gonna sprinkle that across. Oh yeah, now we're cooking with hot grease. That's how country folks says now we're cooking, now it's getting hot. So I have some dried pineapple rings here. These are dried pineapple slices. It will get a little moist, but it will stay mainly dehydrated, but it's gonna add another layer of texture. I'm gonna pour some melted butter on top. That's gonna help moisten this bar as well. Last but not least, sweetened coconut flakes. I'm gonna put this back in the oven at 350 and let it bake for about 30 to 35 minutes. All right, Ooh, this is gorgeous. Look at the way that pineapple just melted into that cream cheese and the coconut got all toasty on top. Oh my gosh. Now I can add my candied pecans. It's gonna add so much crunch and nuttiness and that sweet, buttery molasses flavor.
I'll start by building my crust, which is matzo meal based. Typically with magic bars, it's a graham cracker base, but that's a no-no on Passover. So I'll sprinkle 1 cup into the bottom of my 9-inch square pan, and I'll sweeten it with 3 tablespoons of sugar and a pinch of salt. This is kind of like a matzo meal pie crust. And to bring it all together, I'll drizzle it with 1/2 cup of melted coconut oil. And this is the unrefined stuff, so you get that coconutty flavor. Passover is a really tough holiday if you're not into coconut, because there's a lot of coconut on Passover. I'll give this a gentle stir so that the coconut oil and the matzo meal can combine, and then I'll pack it down to create my base layer. Around here, any dessert that is baked in a pan and then cut into squares is lumped into this big, delicious category of bars. They're a staple at potlucks and parties. Everyone loves them. This is simply a Passover version of bars. Hey Marge, I'm gonna bring the bars. That's how you say it. Okie-doke. For my second layer, I'll sprinkle on some dried cherries, which are awesome because they bring that tart sourness to an otherwise very sweet bar. And next, a good layer of chocolate chips. I'm using a combination of dark chocolate, rainbow, and peanut butter chips. And this is part of the true magic because when the chocolate melts and then firms back up, they'll help the bars stay together. Peanut butter chips are the way to go. I've got these fun rainbow chips too. They'll be really pretty and springy. These are easy to get online, or you could omit them and use more peanut butter or chocolate chips too. Okay, I'll make sure these spread all the way to the edge. I'll sprinkle on some chopped pistachios for that nutty crunch. Some shredded coconut. I like these big flakes, they're so pretty. And this is unsweetened coconut. There's coconut in 3 forms in these bars. There's the shredded, there's the coconut oil, and now there's the last layer, which is the sweetened condensed coconut milk, which is the sweet, sticky glue that holds it together. Before I drizzle this on, I'll add a splash of vanilla for more flavor. I'm gonna do it right in the can, because again, no dirty dishes here. I'll stir this in to incorporate. I think my father-in-law, Roger, is gonna appreciate these the most. He's the real sweet tooth of the family, the sugar farmer, go figure. I'll pour this evenly over the top of the bars now, making sure to get a good distribution throughout. That is some kosher for Passover gooiness right there. I love sweetened condensed coconut milk. Yum. All right, these will go in the oven at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes until the coconut is golden and the bars are set. I can't wait. I'm gonna get my bars out. Ooh, those look gooey and good. Okay, while they're still sticky, I'll sprinkle them with the final layer. Just a few sprinkles. It's spring, it's colorful. Give them a spring sprinkle shower. Okay, done. They look beautiful. I'll let these cool completely in the pan and then chill them in the fridge for an hour before slicing into squares. Get a load of these bars. They're sweet and chewy, and the salty crunch from those pistachios is awesome. I am plagued with tastiness right now.
I'm usually pretty good at keeping secrets, but I'm gonna let you in on this one. I'm adding beets to my regular brownie recipe. You won't believe how delicious the results are. Turn on the mixer and let that start to cream together. And while it does, I'm gonna puree the beets. I've got 8 ounces of boiled beets, and I'm gonna put them in the food processor. So I'll give it a few pulses, and then I'll take the lid off and scrape the sides, and then I'll puree it again. Now I hear what some of you are saying, gross, beets and brownies, no way. But I tell you what, you have got to try it. You'll be hooked for life, I promise. Okay, I'll let those sit for a minute, and I'm gonna turn the mixer to the lowest speed, And I'll add 3 eggs. I already cracked them. I don't want the shell in the brownie batter. Those are in. And now just a splash of vanilla. I'm gonna drizzle in some melted unsweetened chocolate. This recipe is based on my triple chocolate brownies, but what I did was remove one of the chocolates and I'm substituting the beets instead. Okay, that is looking good. So now I'm gonna mix in the beets. When you try these brownies, you'll see you do not taste the beets at all. Now I've also got to add some dry ingredients. 1 1/4 cup of flour, and then 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa. That's the second chocolate in the brownie. And I'll mix that together. It smells really good in this kitchen. So I'll add about 1/3 of this mixture into the mixer. And again, the lowest setting. I don't want everything to fly everywhere. I'm gonna crank up the mixer a bit. Just one more thing to add, some chopped walnuts, or you can use pecans, whatever you like in brownies. And that looks absolutely perfect. I am definitely going to lick this later. I will wait until I've got the brownies done. I'm gonna give the bowl a scrape just to make sure I didn't miss any chunks of flour anywhere. Now I've got a square baking pan. I greased the pan and then I lined it with parchment and then I greased the parchment itself. I do not want these brownies to stick. I'm gonna spread it into the corners and then it's just a few more steps before you see the results. So first I'll bake the brownies 350 degrees for 50 minutes. Then take them out and let them cool in the pan. I'll lift the brownie slab out, peel off the paper, cut it into 9 big squares, and pile them onto a cake stand.
I'm making my s'mores brownies, which are rich and fudgy and covered in charred marshmallows. To get started on the crust, I have 2 packages of graham crackers. I'll spice things up with some ground cinnamon, a little bit of chili powder for a tiny kick of heat. I'll bring out all the flavors with a pinch of kosher salt, and then I'll blend this until it's really finely ground. All right, I'm gonna drizzle in 10 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter, and this will bring the crust together. This looks great and it smells even better. I'm gonna get this into my pan now. I've got an 8-inch square pan that I've greased and lined with parchment paper, and I'll pack it down firmly and evenly. My crust is packed. I'm gonna stick it in the fridge to chill while I make my brownie layer. These brownies are so moist and fudgy. I'll start with 2 large eggs. I'll grab some sugar, 1/2 cup of light brown sugar. I'll add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'll pour in the melted butter that's left over from the graham cracker crust. And by this time, it's cooled slightly, which is good because I don't want it to cook the eggs. And this is 3 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. I'll whisk this to combine, and I want to whisk it pretty vigorously so that the butter and the sugar really emulsify. Time to add some dry ingredients. I'll get a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Cinnamon and chocolate together are so good. And then a little bit of chili powder because these s'mores brownies are inspired by Mexican chocolate, which has that great heat. And a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. And I'll mix to combine. And for the final touch, some chocolate chips. I love it when brownies have surprises of extra chocolate sprinkled in. Twice the chocolate. Yay! My crust is firmed up. I'm gonna pour the brownie batter all over it. I'll spread this out evenly. Now this is ready for the oven. I'll stick it in at 350 degrees until they're set on top. My brownies are done baking. They're looking great. And now for the top layer, I'm making my gooey marshmallow frosting. I've got 1 stick of butter, 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, and a pinch of salt that I'm blending up until it's fluffy. And now to make it marshmallowy, I'm gonna add 2 cups of marshmallow cream. I love this stuff. It's so smooth and gooey. I'm just eyeballing this in. I'll add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract and mix until it's smooth. I'll spread this right on. And I'll spread this all over. Oh, for sweet. I'll stick this in the fridge to firm up, and then I'm gonna go find Nick because I need some help charring up my marshmallows. I found my torch man. If you don't have a torch person, you can toast your marshmallows in a broiler. Those look perfect. It smells like a campfire in here. Now you can just put some of those on top of the brownies.
Will do.
Perfect. Okay, you did a great job. I think you earned a taste.
Let's do it.
Okay. Cheers. Oh, layers. Oh yeah. I could eat these all day.
I'm creaming together some melted butter and sugar, and I'm just stirring it until it's slightly smooth, and it looks great. So I'll drop in 2 eggs. Okay, the eggs are mixed in, and now I'll splash in some vanilla. I'm gonna make the dry mixture, which is really simple. It's 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Told you it was simple. So I'm gonna sprinkle the dry ingredients into the butter and sugar mixture, and I'll stir it gently, just kind of fold it as I go. This looks amazing. It's nice and smooth. Now I've got to add the sprinkles because that's what makes these confetti blondies instead of regular old blondies. The sprinkles kind of bake in the blondies, and some of them start to burst open a little bit, and then you have these beautiful colors all throughout the blondies. They are so much fun. Okay, now I'll get them into the pan. I've just got a square baking pan, and I sprayed it and then lined it in parchment and then sprayed the parchment. Okay, it's all spread out. So I'm gonna bake the blondies. I'll put them into a 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes. Right now I'm gonna make the frosting for the blondies. They're out of the oven and cooling. So I'm putting a bunch of butter and some powdered sugar into the mixer. And I just added a little bit of the powdered sugar. I've got 5 cups total and 2 sticks of butter that I cut into pieces. I've also got 1/2 cup of milk, and I'll pour in a splash at a time and keep adding more powdered sugar and milk until it's all blended together. Okay, another little splash of milk. That looks great. Now I think I can go in with the rest of the powdered sugar. And then I'll drizzle in the rest of the milk. And I'm also gonna add a little splash of vanilla. And now it's safe for me to turn up the speed a bit. Now, because this is so sweet, I'll sprinkle in 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm gonna let this keep beating for a few minutes until it's light and fluffy. The frosting is light and fluffy. Before I put it on the blondies, I'm gonna add sprinkles to the frosting too, so about 1/4 cup. And I do this once it's finished whipping because the sprinkles would just break up and disintegrate if I threw them in while they're mixing. Okay, that's a sprinkly frosting. It looks so good. And I'll just put the whole bowl of frosting onto the blondies. Sprinkles make everything better. Okay, I'm gonna chill the blondies and then I'll slice them into 2-inch squares.
I'm gonna get a pan here and we're gonna melt down 1/2 stick of butter. Now the stick of butter is gonna go into the graham cracker crumbs, which I'm not really telling you anything you don't know. The graham cracker crumbs are gonna hold the bottom of the cheesecake together, and we're gonna melt that together. All right, and what we're gonna do is gonna lock this guy in, and we're gonna take 1 whole package of graham crackers. And I'm not sure, maybe it's like probably 9 or 10, 1 big brick. And we're gonna grind them up to almost where it looks like sand. So we got one of these guys. We're just gonna pop this open. I'm gonna drop the graham crackers right in, like that. Okay, we're also gonna season this up. I got a little bit of sugar, okay, we're gonna make it sweet. I'm just gonna eyeball all of this, but I think it's about 2 tablespoons. Okay. It's also gonna make it nice and crisp once we cook it. All right, and then we're also gonna add a little bit of cinnamon to the graham crackers as well, because I think it's a really kind of nice, well-rounded flavor. All right, so a little bit of cinnamon, not too much. Drop it in like that. It's gonna give it a great smell as well. All right, drop that in. And just kind of pulse it down. All right. Perfect. Now, when the graham crackers are completely broken down, we're gonna take our melted butter and we're just gonna pour it in, get right on top. All right. And then we're gonna do it one more time. And the butter and the sugar are gonna start to react, and that's what's gonna make the crust itself really crispy when we pop it into the oven. So it almost looks like wet sand once you start to blend the butter. So we're gonna pop the top of this guy. All right, take this out, and then we're just gonna take the crumbs, and we're just gonna pour them in right into the bottom. Now we're gonna pre-bake this, because sometimes the crust can be a little kind of crumbly, so it doesn't really kind of support the cheesecake. I think it should be super crunchy. I think it should have a nice little snap to it. So we're just gonna take a little glass dish, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna press all of the graham cracker right down into the bottom. We're gonna put this into the oven at 325 degrees for about 12 minutes until it's golden brown. It's so simple. All right, if you're taking notes, I've got 1 16-ounce container cream cheese that we're gonna put right in the bottom of our mixer here. And you wanna make sure that the cream cheese is room temperature. If not, you're gonna get lumps. All right, 1 egg. 2. All right, now this is a lemon blueberry cheesecake bar, so of course we need some lemon. I got 2 lemons here. All right, and I've got a grater. And what we're gonna do is take the zest off of both these guys. So the zest of 2 lemons. All right, then we're gonna take the juice from the same 2, cut them in half, and then we're gonna squeeze them like through my fingers, just like this. So you wanna make sure you catch all the seeds. Okay, we're gonna squeeze this out, and then we're gonna sweeten it up with a little bit of sugar. Okay, I'm gonna have 1/2 cup of just regular white sugar to our food processor. And I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. So it's not really an exact measurement. If you've ever measured a cup before, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So it's about, I think there. Okay, looks pretty good. Now we're gonna put this through the mill here. Blend it down. Okay, we're gonna take all this great cheesecake batter and we're just gonna pour it right in the bottom of the crust. Look at that. Waste not, want not. We'll make sure you get all this stuff out. And try not to disrupt the graham cracker on the bottom, so you don't want like flakes of graham cracker all through your cheesecake. You want it nice and smooth and separated. All right, so we're gonna take this up, all right, and just kind of gently kind of push it from one side to the other. All right, definitely goes all the way from end to end. Now, we said blueberry lemon cheesecake, right? I know you're probably thinking to yourself, what the heck are the blueberries? What we're gonna do with this is take a whole pint of blueberries that have been washed, and we're going to put them right on top whole. We're just gonna sprinkle them in, and we're gonna keep it the same temperature, relatively low, 325 degrees. So the whole thing's gonna bake. And we're gonna cook it for about 30 to 35 minutes, or until it just starts to jiggle right in the middle. And it's gonna be great. That's cool, huh? You can have them for lunch. They're great for a bake sale. You can probably get $2.50 or $3 a piece for those things. Makes a great presentation. And then we'll dust up a little bit of powdered sugar, just kind of give it a little bit of effect.
I'm making my Halva magic bars. They're chewy and sweet and literally magic because they're all made in the same pan. I just add every ingredient to the pan and bake it. So I'm starting with a pan that's been greased and then lined with parchment, and greasing it helps the parchment paper stick. I'm gonna add a stick of butter, and I'm gonna melt my butter directly in the pan. I'll stick this in the oven for a few minutes, and my oven's already preheated at 350. And while this melts, I'll gather my remaining ingredients. I've got some graham crackers here and pistachios, and I'm gonna crush up my graham crackers. I'll just put them in a bag and crush them up. Looking good. I'm gonna check on my butter now. Perfect. I'm gonna swirl my pan around to make sure that the butter gets all over the bottom. And then I'll scatter my graham cracker crumbs all over the butter. And I'll use my spatula to spread it around evenly. You don't have to worry about packing this down like an actual pie crust. It's just one of the layers. Now my next layer is gonna be a cup of chopped dark chocolate. I like using dark chocolate here because the other ingredients are really sweet, so the dark chocolate adds a nice balance. Traditionally, Magic bars have butterscotch chips and chocolate chips, but instead of butterscotch chips, I'm using one of my all-time favorite foods, halva. Halva is a Middle Eastern candy that's made of sesame and sugar, and it's a little bit crumbly, a little bit flaky, kind of fudge-like, totally addictive. I'll sprinkle this all over. And halva is available at a lot of grocery stores or specialty stores, or you could also order it online. Next, I'm gonna add some chopped, salted, toasted pistachios. I love the green color that this is gonna add. You need something salty too to balance out all of the sweet ingredients in these bars. The pistachios complement the halva really nicely, and I just love pistachios so much. Next, I'm gonna hold everything together with my sweetened condensed milk. First, I'm gonna pour a little bit out over the bars just to make room for my extracts so that I can have space in the can to mix it up. And now I'm gonna add some vanilla extract and rose water, which goes so incredibly with the pistachios and the halva and the coconut. That's gotta be like my favorite flavor family ever. And I'll mix this up right in the can. If you don't have rose water in your pantry, don't worry about it, it's optional. Now I'll pour this on evenly all over the top. And it's just gonna soak down into all the cracks of the ingredients and hold everything together. I love these. And now I'll sprinkle on sweetened shredded coconut. And this gets all toasty in the oven and gets gorgeously brown, and it adds great texture. Okay, I'll spread out my coconut. And now I'll finish these off with some dried rose petals. They're really pretty, and these will also complement the rose water that's in the sweetened condensed milk. Now I'm gonna bake these at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes until the edges are golden. And when they bake, everything is gonna melt together and form this flavor party that is so good. Oh. They came out beautifully, and now I just need to cut them into squares and then pack them up for the potluck. I'm gonna score them first so that I can know where to cut with my knife. And now I'll go the other way. Okay, and now I'll use my knife to chop them up. Oh yeah, these are looking great. And I'll grab my container and I'll pack these up. And I feel like every good Midwesterner has a collection of sturdy containers specifically for potlucks. Oh no, one of these won't fit. It's chewy and sweet and nutty, and there's this great crust all around the outside.
My apple pie bars are kind of a mashup between apple pie and shortbread bars. So I've got 1 pound of butter. Okay, the next thing is 3/4 of a cup of sugar. 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I use light brown sugar. 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now, the really important thing here is that the butter is at room temperature. So when you mix it, it gets nice and light and fluffy, and then you can add the other ingredients. You want to start it slow, and then gradually increase it. And what I've done is sift together 4 cups of flour, it's all-purpose flour, and 1½ teaspoons of kosher salt. I sifted them to make sure that they got really well combined. And now I'm just going to add them slowly to the mixture. And what I do is I turn the mixture down low, and rather than dump the whole thing in, which means it probably won't mix in well, I'm just going to do this slowly. Okay. Perfect. So this is really what you want it to look like. You want it to be soft and light and fluffy, but it will also hold together. And so if it doesn't do that, just add a teaspoon of water. First, I grease the bottom so it'll stick. And I want to be able to lift this whole thing out when I'm done. So I put parchment paper in, but I don't want it to fall into the pan. So I just take little metal clips, make sure there's no plastic on it and just clip this piece of parchment paper right to the pan. Voila. So now I've got the shortbread dough, and I'm gonna put 2/3 of it in the bottom of the pan. And then with floured hands, which is the best way to spread this out, I'm just gonna spread it out into the pan. So I just want an even layer. This is my little trick. I take a metal baking cup and I flour the bottom. And so with a cup, you can kind of press it into the corner. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna refrigerate this for 20 minutes, then I'm gonna bake it 375 for about 18 to 20 minutes until it's golden brown and delicious. And then I'm gonna cool it. Happily, I've got one already done. How good does that look? It's incredible. I combined 1.5 pounds each of sliced Granny Smith apples and Golden Delicious apples. I added 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice to stop the apples from browning, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, then some classic apple pie spices, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/8 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and mixed it all together. Then I added the apples to a pot containing 4 tablespoons of melted butter and let it simmer for 15 minutes, just until the apples were tender. That was pretty easy, right? Okay, so what I'm gonna do with the apples is I'm gonna spread them out on the shortbread crust. So there's just a little bit like a 1/2 inch border around the edge. Okay, so that's it for the apples. So I have 1/3 of the shortbread left in the mixer. I'm just gonna add a few things to give it even more flavor and crunch. So 1/2 cup of chopped walnuts, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, mixer back on, just enough on a low speed just to get it all mixed together. Okay, last a little bit. How good does this look? Okay, next I'm gonna show you how I bake, cut, and serve the bars. The pan goes into a 375-degree oven for 25 to 30 minutes. Then when the time's up and the topping is browned, I'll take them out and let them cool completely. Then use the parchment to lift the slab out of the pan onto a board. Slide the paper out, then cut it into 12 squares with a large, sharp knife. I just serve the bars right on the cutting board. I love the way it looks. So that's apple pie bars. Apple pie in the form of a bar. Who wouldn't want to eat that? I do.
I'm making my mint truffle bars. To get started, I'm gonna infuse some butter with fresh mint. I'll melt 3/4 cup of unsalted butter. While this melts, I'm gonna get my mint ready. I'm gonna chop off the rough stems. Some of the tender stems in here are fine. Now I'm gonna remove it from the heat, and I'm gonna let this infuse for 10 minutes off the heat while I mix up my dry ingredients. I'm gonna combine 1 cup unsweetened cocoa powder, 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. I'll whisk this up. Okay, this is combined. I'll set this aside. I'll strain the butter right into my big bowl. I'm smelling that minty freshness. Then I'm gonna press with my spatula to get any excess butter that's hiding in the mint leaves. I've got a couple of eggs and some bittersweet chocolate, which is gonna be so great underneath the layer of minty sweet buttercream. And I'm gonna add 2 ounces, which is about a good big handful. And I'm gonna let the heat of the butter melt the chocolate. And then I'll whisk it up until it's smooth. Chocolate and butter and mint, yes. I'm gonna add my 2 eggs. I'll whisk to combine. This is the best place to be right now, just standing over a bowl of minty, buttery chocolate. I'll whisk in the dry ingredients. When all of these layers are in one bite together, it's completely addictive. And now I'm gonna bring this batter together with some mint schnapps. You can't survive a Chicago winter without peppermint schnapps. Chicago is so cold. I realize that this area is even colder, but in Chicago, I was so freezing because you have to walk places there. Here you just drive everywhere. You leave your car running in the grocery store parking lot. Okay, I'm gonna measure out a 1/4 cup of schnapps, and this is gonna add more minty flavor on top of that fresh mint. And if you didn't wanna use schnapps, you could sub milk with a little bit of mint extract. I'll pour this in and whisk until it's smooth. I've got an 8-inch square pan here that's lined with parchment, and I have these little wings, which is gonna help me lift the bars out when they're done. I'll scrape the batter right in, and I'll smooth it out into a thin, even layer. This looks great. I'll stick it in the oven at 350 degrees for 28 to 30 minutes until the center is set. Layer 1 complete. My brownie layer is out of the oven and cooling, and now I'm gonna make my mint buttercream, which is sweet and fresh, and it adds this beautiful pop of green color. To start, I'm gonna mix up some softened unsalted butter with a little powdered sugar for sweetness and a pinch of salt. I'll add some peppermint schnapps. This is for more minty flavor and a little bit of a buzz, because unlike the brownies, this is not getting baked. I'll squirt in a touch of green food coloring and beat till it's fully combined. Ah, that's so pretty. It's almost like a dark sage. Okay. This is gonna be a thick layer. Oh yeah, that's so smooth and luxurious. I'm spreading the frosting all the way to the edge. Okay. Oh my God, that's so good and minty. And I'm like a little bit drunk now. I'm gonna let this firm up in the fridge for about 15 minutes while I get going on my 3rd layer. My buttercream has firmed up, and now I'm gonna take the best part of a chocolate truffle, that buttery center, and smear it all over the top. I have my chocolate and butter that's melted in my pan here, and I'm gonna pour it on and make big, luxurious swoops. And I'll finish it off with just a few of these shiny silver sprinkles. It's so pretty. I'm gonna let this set in the fridge, and then I'll cut these into 16 perfect squares. And 2 for me. Oh my God. They are so intensely minty and chocolatey, and the textures just go so well together.
I'm making my PB&J Swirl bars.
Please, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Nothing better
I
than
love
that
the swirl.
cookie and peanut
And
butter.
I see you got those salty butter crackers.
You already know.
There's nothing better
Nothing, I was
than
just- I
those
just
peanut
said that.
butter.
Here's what I
Nothing.
would like to force some company to do. They've always got the graham cracker crust or that chocolate cookie crust at the grocery store. I'm kicking it up another level. I am making a butter cracker crust, okay?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's salty, it's buttery, and then I'm gonna sweeten it a bit. I mean, it's perfection at the bottom of this, okay? So before you get them into your food processor, kind of give like a pre-crunch, because you don't wanna make butter out of this or mush. You wanna kind of help it out a little
It's like
bit.
a little massage, right?
A little
Give
bit
it
of a massage, get them in there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeezy. Matter of fact, Jeezy, I'm gonna have you work just a quick second as soon as I'm done making this. So thank you for taking that. A little bit of brown sugar, and then some melted butter.
Moss butter to the butter cracker.
Yeah, salted butter. Make it salted. All right, now I'm just gonna go ahead and pulse it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what you're
Oh, yeah.
looking for?
Sand.
You want some sand, but like moist sand.
low tide.
Right? You're on the edge of the beach.
Low tide.
Yeah, you're making sand castles with this.
This can't be bad. Like,
It can't.
impossible to be bad.
It really can't. And like I said, you can kind of personalize it, whatever kind of nut butter you like. All right, so GZ,
Yeah.
now is your turn.
What am I doing?
You're just going to press this into the bottom of this 8x8 that we've got the parchment in. We've sprayed the bottom. We've got the parchment going both ways so that it can pull out easily once we
Parchment
bake it.
cradle.
And GZ,
Yeah,
when you're done with
spatula.
that, you want a spat to press it down. There you go. You're gonna press it in there with your cup or anything like a glass, just get it nice and firm.
Okay.
Put that in the fridge and let it rest for a bit so the butter kind of butters up again.
Yes, chef.
Yeah, it's not melted anymore. Okay, so now the filling, very simple. If you look closely, you'll see where GZ decided to have some peanut butter with his butter cracker right here. Just right here, just striations all up in the PB. But to that.
Scott Cohn and I are peanut butter junkies.
Yeah.
I love it too. Oh, almost every night.
I grind it at the store right in front of me. I take it home. It's almost warm when you eat it. It's unbelievable.
All right, so look, a little bit of brown sugar went in, some butter, and then I'm just gonna get in my mixer.
Sunny, are these no bake or are they going in the oven?
We're gonna put them in the oven and bake them.
No, you won't be able to do it.
Sorry, Katie.
Can't take this
Now,
recipe.
make sure you think about the brown sugar that you put in there not being granulated. So just kind of mix it until that peanut butter turns a little bit more of a brighter color or a more tan color. And that's when you know air is incorporated.
So peanut butter, brown sugar, butter.
That's it. Peanut butter, brown sugar, more butter.
Use chunky peanut butter for this?
You can use chunky peanut butter. You know, if you have a stand mixer, you can just do that wand thing.
Yeah.
You can use this as well. It's not going to get in the way too much of your hand mixer.
You know, one of the things I love about this recipe is that you always have these ingredients on hand.
Always.
So last minute, you want to make something, go for this.
Always.
I like that cinnamon cookie butter.
Yeah. Hey, GZ, get the other one out of the fridge.
Yes, chef.
Yeah, you
And we will get this into our 8x8. Now remember,
look
you're
how
going
nice
to
and
rest
firm
the
it is.
crust. Yeah.
Look at how he did. That's an excellent job.
You can do that. And then just pour it in.
Oh, look, it's totally transformed.
Come on, man.
I could just eat a bowl of that.
This took a lot of time.
No time. I mean, it's summertime. We don't really want to work too hard. And I got to be honest with you. When it comes to like summertime foods and taking it to the park or the beach or whatever, it's got to be fast or I'm just going to go to the bakery. And then when you want to swirl it, just going to take some strawberry jam, grape jam,
Oh, man.
whatever you like. Just dollops.
That's my jam.
I knew that was coming. How
Dad
did I?
jokes.
Why didn't I
You know?
just say it at the same time as he did?
Geoffrey's reformulating this recipe with
I sure am not.
and brandy and dried apricots flambéed.
A flambe.
You have such an
meringue
ulterior
top.
view of me.
White gloves, flambeing the pie.
So just dollops around, and you can take a
show us how you
skewer
do that.
or a dowel, and then just kind of get in there and
This is
have
the type
fun
of
with
recipe
it.
that everybody at the party goes for.
Yep.
You can have something fancy, you put out these PB&J bars, that's
you're
what
absolutely
everybody's
right.
talking about.
That's easy. Look at that. All right,
All right.
350 degrees. It's gonna take about 30 minutes.
Wow.
Do some exercises here
I mean,
after
can you
this.
technically
wait to
like
try this.
eat this unbaked, right? If you just make
could,
it like
there's
an
no
ice
egg.
box.
Yeah,
You could. It will firm up for you.
Yeah.
But then the jelly is kind of like, it's nice to cook it down and bring it out. You wanna cool it off
You could freeze it though.
Oh, yeah.
Frozen
and then
peanut butter.
release it.
So you cooked it. It's so like there's no egg in it or anything.
No
how does
egg,
that work?
no flour. It's just magic. It's
Okay,
magic.
I'm into it.
Yeah, it's magic. And then just come in here and make bars. Okay.
That's a
See how
good
that comes
sound.
apart?
It's all right.
Mm.
I ain't complaining about
That's
that.
that butter cracker crust, honey.
Oh, BCC.
I like that. I love that it has that, butter cracker is salty and savory.
Salty and sweet just really goes together, right? When you
yeah.
think about it.
I love that.
You know I like the
one,
corners.
please?
Yes, I will hook you up with a corner because I'm a corner.
I think what you're saying now is that the base is the most important thing. It supports the luxurious topping, so it doesn't need that
does.
extra like
The
heaviness.
foundation.
It does. It's the foundation of life.
Foundation.
That's the noise right there when you break through the crust with
Oh.
the fork.
You like that?
Uh-oh.
Right?
She's
80.
It's so nostalgic in flavor, the PB&J. And I love the way that the jam gets a little extra sticky.
I'm turning a super Midwest cookie into a dreamy, dense bar of delight. I'm making my monster cookie bars, which are thick and chewy, basically a junkier granola bar. To get started, I'm gonna melt a stick of butter, and I'm gonna melt this over low. I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of unsweetened peanut butter to my bowl. I like to buy the kind that just has peanuts, because I am gonna be adding a bunch of sugar. I'm gonna add a half a cup of granulated sugar and then 2/3 of a cup of light brown sugar. That hint of molasses flavor goes so nicely with peanut butter. I'll add a teaspoon of cinnamon. I think of cinnamon to peanut butter the same way that I think of espresso to chocolate. It just brings out its natural tastiness and coziness. A couple of teaspoons of vanilla. I love that flavor. And 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'll check on my butter. This is all melted. I'll add this right in. And I'll whisk this together. Okay, this is combined. I'm gonna add 3 eggs now, 1 at a time. Monster cookies are a classic Midwest dessert. They were invented in Michigan, and they've gotta have peanut butter, oats, and candy-coated chocolates. So 3 of the best things. And I like monstering all sorts of desserts. Monster cookie dough, monster granola would be so good. Monster everything. I'll sprinkle in some shredded coconut. It's non-traditional, but I dig it. And some roasted peanuts. This just adds great crunch. I'll get these incorporated. There's no flour in monster cookies, so I'm gonna add 3½ cups of quick cooking oats. I've got my baking soda, and I'm gonna sprinkle 1 teaspoon evenly all over the oats. I'll mix the baking soda in with the oats so that I can incorporate evenly, and then I'll fold it in with the rest of the batter mixture. I love thick desserts, especially when they're extra gooey. Okay, I always like to add my candy-coated chocolates last so that their color doesn't bleed. So I'll sprinkle in a cup. I'll quickly fold these in. I've got a 9x9 square pan, and it's greased and lined with parchment with wings, which will help me get the baked bars out. And I'll just dump my dough right in. I'll pat it out evenly, all the way to the edge. I love these pans that have perfect 90-degree corners. So satisfying. If you like a hilly landscape, you could just leave it, but I live in the flatlands, so I'm gonna take a piece of parchment paper, put it on top, and give it a good pat so that it's extra flat. Feels as flat as the farmland out the window. Looks good. I'll top with a few more chocolates. Every bite is going to get some chocolate on top. These are gonna bake at 350 degrees for 28 minutes until brown around the edges. Take cover. There's about to be a monster invasion in here. These smell awesome. I'm gonna let these cool and then I'll slice them up. Ooh, it's still slightly warm. Here I go. It's nutty, it's oaty, it's chocolatey. I am one happy momster.
I start with a German chocolate cake mix, and then to that I'm gonna add 1/3 cup of evaporated milk, and then a stick of melted butter. I'll just mix that a little bit, and then I'll chop up a bunch of pecans. A couple years ago, somebody sent me a gift of killer brownies, and they were so good that I actually rationed them. And this is the closest recipe I've found to the killer brownies that I was given. Brownies are perfect for football food because the whole thing about football food is it needs to be easy to grab and eat with your hands. So I couldn't imagine having a layered cake or something fussy. It just needs to be quick and something that the guys can just grab. And I don't know, there's something about giving old college friends a batch of knock-you-naked brownies that kind of cracked me up. But I'm kind of mischievous that way. You'll need about 1 cup of pretty finely chopped pecans. So I'll add these to the mix and just stir them up. It's a really, really thick batter. You can't pour it at all. You have to really kind of smush it with a rubber spatula to get it combined. So right now, I'm just going to use half of this mixture. So what I do is I just press it into the bottom of the bowl, and then I use my spatula to draw a line right down the middle. And then I know I'm getting exactly half the dough. Math has always been my strong suit. Just stick it in this greased and floured pan, and then the easiest way to do it is just use your fingers to pat it all along the bottom. All right, Now it goes in the oven 350 degrees for 8 to 10 minutes until it's done. Okay, I've got a double boiler going and I've just unwrapped 60 caramels. I didn't eat one, I promise. I'm gonna add a half a cup of evaporated milk. Now I added a third a cup earlier, so we've almost used the whole can. And then just give it a little stir and this will take a little while to melt. Okay, oh, the caramel's perfect. Nice and smooth. Now I'm gonna grab the brownies out of the oven. These aren't actually done, they're just set. And you're not gonna believe what I'm about to do to these. Grab the melted caramel sauce, and it just goes in a layer over the first layer of brownies. Okay, now I'll just spread it out into a layer. Now I'm gonna grab some chocolate chips and just sprinkle them on. And you really just need a single layer of chocolate chips. The brownies are gooey enough as it is. And now I'm gonna take the other half of the brownie dough. And when I use the first half, I could just use my fingers and press them into the pan, but I can't do that this time because the pan has all this stuff going on. So I'm gonna press it into a square. This all just turns into a gooey, wonderful masterpiece. Okay, now I'm gonna stick this in the oven for another 20 minutes or so, and then I'll take them out and chill them, and then cut them into pieces and serve them to the guys.
I'm making limoncello ricotta cheesecake squares. Okay, so that's 15 graham crackers. I'm just gonna make crumbs. You can actually buy them already ground, but I just prefer to grind them myself. Okay, into the bowl. I actually like this. Instead of having a big, thick wedge of cheesecake, this is like a light cheesecake, and you get a little square, and it's just perfect. So, 1 stick of butter melted. This is really just a classic graham cracker crust. And 2 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, I'm just gonna mix that together. And ricotta gives it real body. It's wonderful. And lemon makes it lighter. Really delicious cheesecake. Okay, that's nicely mixed. I'm just gonna put it in a 9 by 13 pan. Just dump the whole thing in. Just spread it out. I just want a little bit of an edge on it. And you don't want to press it too hard, just lightly. And this is my trick for making a little bit of an edge. Take a metal cup and just press it down lightly. And that way you end up with an edge, but not too much of a thick crust right in the corner. It doesn't have to be perfect. It smells good already. I think it's all the butter. Okay, this is gonna bake 350 degrees for 8 minutes, and then I'm gonna let it cool. So I'm making the ricotta filling. I've got 1 pound of cream cheese and 1 1/4 cups of sugar, and I'm putting in 1 1/2 cups of ricotta. The ricotta really gives it great flavor. I want all the ingredients to be room temperature, so it stays really nice and light. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna put in is limoncello, which is gonna give it great flavor. It's really Southern Italian liqueur. I'm gonna use a 1/2 cup, which is a lot. See if I can put this in without wearing it. Just mix it in slowly. Next thing is vanilla, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And a tablespoon of lemon zest. Perfect, right in. And the last thing is 5 eggs. Just put them in slowly so they mix in well. And that's the filling. Okay, it's perfectly mixed. Now I'll show you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a water bath for this. So big pan, put the crust right in, make sure it's really flat, and I'm gonna just pour the filling into it. The thing about the water bath is it keeps it from cracking, so it'll be really nice. Keeps the oven moist. I'm just gonna pour the whole filling right in. With all the, I can smell the lemon and the limoncello and the ricotta, a little vanilla. It's gonna be delicious. Just pour that in. Now I'm gonna get some really hot tap water. People think that you need boiling water for this, but I just use hot tap water. It's going into the oven, it's gonna get hot. And you want it to come maybe halfway up the side of the pan. Okay. I'm gonna bake this 350 degrees for about 50 to 55 minutes. And then what I'm gonna do is turn off the oven, let it sit for about 15 minutes so it doesn't crack. And then I'm gonna cool it. And in order to cut it, I like to chill it so you get really good squares. Can I scoot by with my lemon squares? No dessert before pizza.
I'm gonna have you turn your pizza here.
I'm just gonna put a little lemon zest on my limoncello cheesecake squares. Limoncello ricotta cheesecake squares.
So good.
Is that good? Cheers. Cheers, Geoffrey.
That's the best dessert I've ever had.
For dessert, I am making my Turkish coffee brownies that are rich and fudgy and have the perfect combination of chocolate, cardamom, and coffee. To get started, I'm toasting up some walnuts. These are looking great. They've been in my pan for a few minutes now and they've gotten lightly browned. And now I'll just coarsely chop them. Now I'll set these aside while I whip up my batter. In my big bowl here, I'll combine my dry ingredients. Half a cup of all-purpose flour, a cup of sugar, and a third of a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. And then I'll add 2 teaspoons of instant espresso powder, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt and baking powder. I'm gonna add some cinnamon and cardamom to my brownies. And cardamom just adds a really nice floral woodsy element. Okay, I've got my dry ingredients. I'll whisk this to combine. Okay, my dry ingredients are combined, and now I'm gonna mix up my wet ingredients. I have 2 large eggs here, and I like starting with my eggs first in case there's any shell that gets in them. And then I have half a cup of melted butter here that is cooled slightly. I don't want it to be too hot, otherwise it'll cook my eggs. And a teaspoon of vanilla extract. This is such an easy batter. I'll add my wet ingredients to my dry ingredients and whisk to combine. Okay, and now I'll fold in my walnuts. You can use any nut in these. You could even just skip the nuts. All right, now I'll grab my pan. I've prepared my pan by greasing it and lining it with parchment paper. Greasing it first helps the parchment paper stick, and I also like allowing little wings to come up on the side so that I can use these parchment wings to lift the brownies up out of the pan after they've baked. So I'll just dump my batter right into my pan. This is an 8 by 8 inch. I'll spread out my batter. Okay, now these are gonna bake at 350 for about 25 minutes until the center is set. I'm gonna let these cool now while I make my chocolate coffee glaze. I'll start with a cup of powdered sugar, 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, a pinch of kosher salt, and then I'm also gonna add some cardamom to the glaze as well. Just a little bit goes a long way. And then I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of melted butter, a tablespoon of coffee, and it could be freshly brewed or cold. You've gotta have coffee in the glaze and the brownies. And a tablespoon of honey will make this glaze glossy. And then just a splash of vanilla, and I'll whisk this until it's smooth. Okay, this consistency is perfect. My brownies have cooled and they're ready for the glaze. This is such a nice, thick, glossy glaze. Got this away from me. Now I'll spread this all over the brownies. I think my swoops are looking good. They just need one more thing. I'm now going to bedazzle my brownies with rainbow chips. Once this glaze is set, I'll slice them into perfect squares. These are looking so fun.
Strawberry lemon cheesecake bars. And guess what? It's no bake. It's cold, refreshing. 1 box of vanilla wafers in a bag. And I'm crushing the vanilla wafers because it's going to be the buttery crust for the strawberry lemon bars. All right. I'm melting 1.5 sticks of butter. It's a lot of butter, but hey, you're making a cheesecake bar. You can't skimp on the butter. While that's melting, I'm going to grab a lemon and some sugar. I'm zesting a half a lemon, so I want to kick that lemon flavor up a notch. You know, now that I think of it, house names like Marty's are pretty common in my family. my grandmother's brother. His name was John Robinson, but we called him Snooky. Have no idea why we called him Snooky, but I always addressed him as Uncle Snooky. House name. So I've added 3 tablespoons of sugar. I'm gonna add that hot butter directly to those crushed vanilla wafers. I'm gonna add a heavy pinch of salt. This crust is so versatile. You can use it in a key lime pie. If you're making some type of like baked fruit, like grilled peaches, you can add it as a quick crumble. And I actually make a baked banana pudding cheesecake. And of course, banana pudding has vanilla wafers, so use a vanilla wafer crust. All right, that looks great. That is the bomb.com. I'm just gonna press down till it's even and leveled. And I've added the parchment paper to make it easy to pull out once it's done. Alrighty, so my crust is in the freezer. I'm gonna get started on my cheesecake filling. I'm using, which is important, room temp cream cheese. I've tried to take the shortcut and not get this cream cheese at room temp, and it does not work. You won't get that nice and fluffy cream cheese filling if you use cold, mildly cold cream cheese. All right, so I'm using about 24 ounces. Here's why I love this no-bake recipe. It's summertime, it's hot. Who wants to turn on their oven in the summertime? I mean, here in Charleston, it's 100 degrees, past 100 degrees. It's hot. I'm not turning that oven on. I'm gonna beat my softened cream cheese till it gets fluffy with a little volume. So I'm gonna stop the process right now. A little bit of lemon zest. 2 teaspoons vanilla extract. All right, get this going again. That looks good to me. It's nice and fluffy, nice and silky and smooth. It's doubled in size, got a little bit of volume in there. Ready to add my lemon juice. 2 teaspoons, 2 cups, confectioner's sugar, added in 1 cup at a time. So I've made this recipe before for my mom and she loved it. The boys haven't tried it yet and I'm pretty sure they're gonna love it too. All right, I'm gonna add in the other cup, the final cup, confectioner's sugar. Get this started again. This is gonna be so light, so airy. Pop it in the fridge, take it out. Once it's chilled, it's gonna be cool, delicious, and refreshing. I'm gonna add in 1.5 cups of sour cream. It gives it that sharp tanginess and it just complements that lemon juice and lemon zest. Alrighty, pop this off. Fold in my whipped cream. And that's about 1 cup. Now because it's no bake, you want that nice, airy, melt in your mouth effect. And that whipped cream does that. In the time that it took me to make this, my crust has already set up. It's fluffy, it's creamy, and it's gonna taste so good once it's chilled. That is done. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge. I gotta cut up some strawberries for the garnish. Cut the top off, cut it lengthwise. Nothing special. And I love using strawberries, especially in the summertime. It just screams summer. They're nice and sweet and ripe, very easy. I mean, lemon and strawberry go hand in hand, like strawberry lemonade. Just place them down. You can get fancy and create a little pattern. If you don't want to do a pattern, that's okay too. I'm putting on the strawberries now instead of when I refrigerated it because strawberries tend to get really, really watery once it sets. These will not get watery at all. I've zested a lemon and add that right on top. I'm gonna make sure I cut between the strawberries. I will eat this by myself, but I have to share. Y'all ready for dessert?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, that is good.
That looks excellent.
There you go. Look at that.
Oh, that's good.
I am all about no-bake recipes these days. This is just a super easy thing you can whip up with whatever you've got in your pantry. So I'm gonna start by melting some butter, about half a stick. And I've got a bag of mini marshmallows, and I'm gonna add about 2/3 of the bag into the pot, and I'll save the rest to decorate the top of the bars. And I'll just stir it around and start the melting process. You wanna see in there, Paige? Aw, marshmallows. Okay, I'm gonna let those melt. And I've got some graham crackers, and I'm gonna break them into pieces. Okay, this mixture is almost completely melted. It's so funny when I think about the recipes that I'm making right now, because when we started quarantining together, I was getting my pantry organized and my fridge and freezer and planning meals and figuring out what I could make. And now I'm like, I don't want to turn on the oven. I don't want to cook something all day. They are all completely ignoring me right now, by the way. Let me have that camera. Look, Mauricio's looking at his computer. Alex is over there on the couch. Alex, you're busted. Well, Stu's taking pictures. That's nice. Here, Paige.
I'm filming you.
Thanks, Paigey. So I've got semi-sweet chocolate chips, and I'm gonna add basically the whole container, which is a 12-ounce bag. So you wind up with this kind of marshmallowy, chocolatey butter mixture. And what could possibly be wrong with that? So now I have this big mixture of marshmallow and semi-sweet chocolate. So I'm gonna add half of these graham cracker chunks. And this is such a sweet, sweet mixture. So I'm gonna sprinkle in some salt. I mean, I will never argue with the combination of chocolate and salt, especially if some graham crackers are thrown in there. So I have a 9x9-inch square pan, and I draped 2 pieces of wax paper so they kind of hang over, and that helps get the bars out when you're finished. I just sprayed it with nonstick spray, and then this bizarre mixture just comes right out. And you just want to spread it out to the edges of the pan. Trust me, this is a miracle. So now I'm gonna sprinkle the rest of the graham cracker crumbs over. So then you have some that are part of the chocolate mixture and some that are just kind of sticking up. And you wanna break them up just a little bit more, and you get these beautiful kind of shards of graham crackers sticking up. And then more marshmallows. I think that looks good. The candies, I'm glad we have some left after Alex completely went to town on these. My goodness. And then I've got rainbow sprinkles just to put a little happy spin on it. I think every dessert we make during quarantine should have sprinkles. Okay, Paigey, look at this. So now all you need is just a little bit of patience. I'm gonna let this set completely, and then we'll cut them into squares. Okay, so look at the bars, guys. I have been cutting them into squares. Now, one of my 2 brilliant daughters, Paige, suggested that since there are marshmallows on top, we could torch them. Okay, ready? The thing is with marshmallows, it's kind of fun to burn them, right? Just like you're around a campfire. Okay, so this is why you have it on wax paper. Look at that. Look, guys, look. Look at the little chunks of graham cracker in there. And the marshmallows sticking up. Okay, give me 5 seconds. I'm gonna get the rest of these on the board. Last one. What a cute little board full of treats. Well, what do you know? Alex is here. Alex is my sweets loving child.
I kind of want one with more chocolate on it.
Oh my gosh. I'll take this one. Oh.
Cheers.
Cheers, Alex. I'm glad you're home.
I went in this. Switch.
They're very rich.
I want some more.
Oh my gosh, that was a good one, Alex.
If you haven't had these before, you're gonna wanna start making up for lost time now. I have a cup of sugar in my pot, and now I'm gonna add a cup of light corn syrup. I'll add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and a few good pinches of salt. I'll just stir this around and let the sugar melt. It's looking shiny and glossy and good. I'm gonna grab my peanut butter and cereal now. I'm using unsweetened peanut butter because there's a lot of sugar already in the pot, and toasted rice and grain cereal. I'll add 1 cup of my peanut butter. I'll stir this in. I'm ready for my cereal. I'll add 7 cups of cereal and stir it all in. This is so crunchy. This mixture is fully coated in this peanut buttery goodness. I'm gonna grab my pan. I've got my pan that I've lined with parchment paper, and I've sprayed it with cooking spray because this mixture is very sticky. So I'll pour it right in. Oh yeah. Now I'm gonna pat this out evenly and firmly in my pan and cover it with a layer of chocolate and butterscotch chips. Then I'll pop it in the oven on warm for just about a minute. Oh yeah. The chocolate chips are melty and shiny. Now I'll spread them around with my offset spatula. I'll make sure that the chocolate chips melt down and are really smooth. Gorgeous swoops. And now I'm gonna add a few pinches of flaky salt and, of course, the sprinkles. So cute. I'll let these set and then slice into squares. They're the perfect feel-good dessert. And now I'll cut. There you go.
That's real good.
No-bake peanut butter bars are a cute, crunchy treat. They're so easy to make, and I love how there's no oven involved. Now, the bars have a nice chocolatey topping, and that's what I'll start on first. I've got 2 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips in a double boiler, and I'll just add about 1/2 cup of creamy peanut butter. Now, it's gonna take a few minutes for that to start to melt, so I'll move over to the cookie part. I'm just using regular vanilla wafers. I've got them in a big plastic bag, and I'm just using a rolling pin to break them up. These cookies will serve as the structure of the peanut butter bars, and I love that they just come straight out of the pantry. So that's looking good right there. Now, I'll move on to the mixer, and I've got 2 sticks of salted butter. Now, butter is not a pantry item. The butter is sort of indispensable when it comes to making these bars delicious, so I'll forgive myself just this once. Now, into this mixture, I'm gonna add a cup of crunchy peanut butter. All right, that looks like about a cup. Now, I'll start mixing this together. Butter and peanut butter. What is the world coming to? Now, while that mixes together, I'll check on the topping. Things are looking good over here. Oh, the peanut butter's all melted and the chocolate is too. So I'll just stir it around until it's totally mixed together. All right, that is looking great. Now I'll take that off to cool a bit. Now back to the mixer. I'm gonna add a little sweetness to this. 2 cups of powdered sugar, and I've learned the hard way to add 1 cup at a time. Now I'll turn it on and let it mix. And then I'll add the 2nd cup. If powdered sugar flies everywhere, it doesn't matter. Nobody's watching. Now, while this is mixing together, I'll just pour in 2 cups of mini chocolate chips, and I'll give those a chance to mix in. And now in go the vanilla wafer crumbs. I add the crumbs at the very last. I don't want them to crush up and get too fine in the mixing process. Okay, that is all mixed together. I do not want to overmix it and crush up all those crumbs. Now I have a 9 by 13 inch pan. I smeared it with butter, and I'll just get the paddle, get all that extra off. And then this just goes right into the buttered pan. Now I'm just using the spatula to press it into a single layer. Try to get the top as flat as I can. Doesn't have to be perfect, of course. Okay, I've got that into a single layer. It looks amazing. It's about to look more amazing. I've got this beautiful chocolatey, peanut buttery topping, and I'll just pour it all over the top of these bars. I'm speechless, literally. I have nothing to say. It just looks so good. I would like to swim in this bowl of chocolate topping. Scrape the extra in. Goodness gracious. Now I'll just use a spoon to spread it into a single layer, get all the way out to the edges. I want every single bar to be covered with this chocolate. I get to lick the bowl. Now I want to sprinkle some peanuts on top, so I'll give them a quick chop. I don't need too many. I'm gonna chop them really fine. And this is where you could also have some fun. You could just do vanilla wafer crumbs on top if you don't want to do nuts, saltines, even crushed up pretzels. Wow, that should be good. I'll just grab them and sprinkle them over. These are so darn easy. I make them a lot and I never can get over how simple they are to make. Now you can do just a light sprinkling of nuts or you can do a really thick layer. I'm somewhere in between. Absolutely perfect. Now I've got to get these into the fridge to set. I'm gonna put them in there for at least an hour and then they'll be all ready to cut. I cannot believe this pan was made from only pantry ingredients. Well, and a little bit of butter. Okay, so after about an hour in the fridge, they were ready to cut into bars. 3 cuts lengthwise and 4 cuts across. Then I piled all 20 of them onto a cake stand, and let me tell you, they did not last long.
When Geoffrey was in college, I used to send him a big shoebox filled with homemade brownies. It's sort of the culinary equivalent of a low-cut dress. I guess it worked. I've been married to him for almost 40 years. So I thought I'd make him brownies, but this time with peanut butter swirl in them. The first thing I need is a pound of butter and a pound of chocolate. It's a lot of butter and chocolate, but it's a lot of brownies. And then a pound of chocolate chips. They're semi-sweet chocolate chips. And then because I don't want them too sweet, I'm gonna put in 6 ounces of bitter chocolate. It's actually unsweetened chocolate. Just gonna chop it up. Try and keep your fingers out of the way. Okay, right into the butter and semi-sweet chocolate. And just melt that until it just melts. You don't want to burn the chocolate. Okay, I'm just gonna stir this up. And just over simmering water. If the water boils, it gets too hot and it'll burn the chocolate. So I'm just gonna leave that over simmering water while I get the eggs together. I need 6 eggs. I use extra large eggs. And it's really important to use room temperature eggs. It just makes the batter work better. This makes 20 huge brownies. Geoffrey's really romantic. A few years ago for our anniversary, he gave me a box of brownies to remind me of the brownies that I used to send him in college. I thought it was so sweet. I wonder if he'll get it about all the things I'm gonna cook for him today. Okay, the chocolate's just melted. I'm gonna turn it off. Actually, I wanna let it cool because I don't want to pour the hot chocolate mixture right into the eggs. Okay, while that cools, I'm gonna add some things to the eggs. And I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of instant coffee powder. It sounds like an odd thing to put in brownies, but it makes the chocolate taste so chocolatey. 2 tablespoons of good vanilla extract. Okay, the next thing is 2 1/4 cups of sugar. An extra quarter. I'm gonna whisk these together, but I'm not gonna whip it. I don't want to get any air in it. I want them to stay pretty dense. All the coffee and vanilla, chocolate. Okay. Next thing I want to do is put the flour and baking powder together. So I need a cup of flour, tablespoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of kosher salt. I sift these together just to make sure it's really smooth when it goes into the mixture. Okay, so that's the dry ingredients. Now I just want to see if the chocolate's cool enough so that it doesn't scramble the eggs. And since I'm putting chocolate chips in later, I don't want it to melt the chocolate chips. Perfect. Good. Okay, I'm just going to pour it right into the eggs and coffee and vanilla. Oof, this is a big bowl of chocolate. Now the flour and baking powder, just slowly add it in. See, that's not a lot of flour for that amount of batter. These brownies are so good, they're really chocolatey. Okay, that's mixed. So I'm gonna take a quarter cup of flour and mix it with 2 cups of chocolate chips. And what it does is keep the chocolate chips from sinking to the bottom of the batter. Just mix them together. Just put them right in. Sometimes I do these brownies with nuts. Sometimes I do them with salted peanuts are good. Great flavor combination. Okay, buttered and floured a half sheet pan. I'm just gonna pour this right on. Just smooth it out. All right, take 3/4 of a cup of peanut butter. You can use smooth peanut butter or chunky peanut butter, whatever you like, and do big dollops of it right on top. And then I'm gonna swirl it in with a knife. I'll show you how. I think it's really important that it actually, when you bite into a brownie, you can taste the peanut butter. It doesn't just look like peanut butter, but it actually tastes like peanut butter. Okay. Take a knife and just swirl this through. So every bite's gonna have a little bit of peanut butter, a chocolate chip, chocolate, and then all those flavors of coffee and vanilla. Who could resist that? Okay, these are gonna bake 350 degrees for 30 minutes, and then I developed this very strange technique, but it works. Halfway through the baking, I'm gonna pick up the pan and wrap it on the shelf, and it releases all the air between the brownies and the pan. These are gonna smell great. Brownies smell great. I'm surprised Geoffrey hasn't come in to see what smells so good. So they bake for exactly 30 minutes. You can see the swirl of peanut butter. Yum. That's gonna be perfect with a steak sandwich. These don't look bad. I don't know, a steak sandwich, brownies for lunch. Geoffrey might think I'm up to something. I hope he figures out what I'm doing. And 1 brownie for him. If I leave all the brownies out, I'll eat them all. That's not a good idea.